The Stars and Stripes show is brought to you by the U.S. Embassy.
Well, it's Gabs FM, power to engage your world. Good morning and how are you? Thank you so much for being a part of the Stars and Stripes show, proudly brought to you by the U.S. Embassy in partnership with Gabs FM and of course hashtag America in Botswana. And today we're having a very, very interesting conversation. And of course we're talking combating transnational crime. Now, let me tell you, recently Afrobarometer report by Star Awards indicates that many Botswana are of the view that, you know, we are performing badly on reducing crime as it continues to spiral out of control. Botswana need to feel safe, and this is why the bilateral relationship goes to show shared security is an important component. And of course, let me tell you something. Have you heard of the International Law Enforcement Academies? Well, the work of 5 ILEAs, sponsored, funded, and administered by the INL, is an important part of the interagency U.S. effort to combat international crime. And why we're speaking international crime, you know, some of the crime that we experience here on the ground can start on the other side of the world. For example, the trafficking of drugs, for example, the trafficking or, you know, the movement of firearms or illegal firearms into any country. The ILEAs advance the anti-crime effort through building the capacity of foreign criminal justice partners of the United States. And let me tell you something, the Republic of Botswana is one of them. And of course, in the building, I have leaders in, you know, one thing that I'll tell you, the prolific Bansula is well connected. The Stars and Stripes show has made me well connected. And I've got Rema Singh Matibe, ILEA Managing Director. Motsadi waka Aleteng. How are you, sir?
Thank you, sir.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you, sir?
Complaining doesn't pay my bills. How was your Christmas season?
It was great.
Yeah.
Just from Christmas, and I think I enjoyed it. I was out of the country just to take a trip out and enjoy myself.
Fantastic. And of course, we've got a colleague of yours in the building. He goes by the name Mr. Mark Boswell. He is the ILEA Program Director. Sir, how are you?
I am great, Mr. Swift. How are you?
Complaining doesn't pay my bills. How was your Christmas season?
It was excellent. Such a little traveling, visited with family.
Fantastic.
It was excellent. Such a little traveling, visited with family.
Fantastic.
But I'm back home.
Welcome. Look, ILEA, let me ask you, Mark, what does that mean? Somebody is listening to the show and they're saying, okay, International Law Enforcement Academies, what does that mean? What is the mandate of this particular entity?
Sure. So we've been in business for a little over 20 years. Mm-hmm. We were established in 2000 to combat transnational crime.
Okay.
And so in our portfolio, we have 35 African countries that we train.
Wow.
And every week we'll bring in these experts, law enforcement officials, usually mid-level managers, to judges, to prosecutors. Every week we bring in these folks from different countries.
Oh, nice.
To train on law enforcement topics.
Okay.
And so they share information, different countries sharing information to combat crime.
So you're essentially capacitating the security organ of Botswana?
Of Africa.
Of Africa.
Yes,
wow,
sir.
35 countries.
Yes, sir.
That is amazing. Let me bring in Remantibe. Say, your history in law enforcement. Just touch us on your journey of law enforcement. We do understand that you're the managing director of ILEA in Botswana, but just touch on the synopsis of your journey in law enforcement.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I'm like you have rightly pointed out, I'm the Senior Assistant Commissioner of Police, the Managing Director ILEA. And I started from very humble beginnings.
Yes, sir.
Like you started as a recruit. That's why I started. Everyone starts there. And I worked my way through the corporate ladder.
Yes, sir.
Achieving a relatively senior position, which I'm sitting on right now.
Well done.
And I can tell you that I've worked in a number of areas of the police service. Normally in the police, you know, you have to work around before you get to this position. I worked in crime. At one stage, I found myself in court. I did all the worst things that you can think about, like managing crime, arresting people, searching people, and doing all that stuff. But ultimately, I had to find my way through, and here I am at ILEA, the International Law Enforcement Academy.
Wow.
I'm now taking care of the relationship between Botswana and America.
Wow, well done and congratulations. You know, these are things that we like to see, and this highlights the bilateral relationship between the US and the BW government, because skill share is important. You know, passing on skills is very, very important to the people of Botswana, the Republic of Botswana, the citizenry of Botswana wants to be independent. Let me bring you back into the conversation. You know, please touch on the nature of your cooperation with the Botswana government from a law enforcement point of view.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. So criminals have networks.
Okay.
International criminals have networks all around the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's important to have law enforcement networks.
Mm-hmm.
And in Botswana, they do a wonderful job of communicating, you know, the different crimes and what they see and the lessons learned.
Mm-hmm.
And so at IALEA, we try to do that as well. We build those law enforcement networks to combat the criminals out there. In fact, today, this week, we have 45 women in law enforcement.
Okay.
Attending a course that is taught by the U.S. Secret Service and the FBI.
Okay.
And so these 45 women are attending a leadership course this week and next week, and they're sharing information. So they're from 9 different countries.
Okay.
You have Botswana sharing information with Nigeria.
Yes.
And so what we hope to achieve is to have those collaborations that will last throughout their career. So someone in Nigeria can call on someone from Botswana and say, I'm seeing this on the streets.
Yes.
Are you seeing the same thing? And hopefully combat those crimes.
Just to get in depth, do you guys touch on, you know, the digital economy and the way
Yes.
the world has moved forward?
Fantastic.
You know, computers and digital is a big and a huge important component of crime. Are those some of the things that you also touch on?
So we have an entire course catalog of different courses that we touch.
Nice.
And one is international e-currency and
okay.
the dark web. We actually have one coming up at the end of the month that is taught by our experts with the U.S. Secret Service and
Nice.
some others in the U.S.
Nice.
And so they talk about the dark web, how the criminals are exchanging money through the web.
Yes.
And e-currency and how the corruption is going on there. So that's a very good course.
Well, that's fantastic. Kings and Queens, welcome to the Stars and Stripes radio show. If you've just joined us, 3956962 is our WhatsApp number. Actually, our studio line. And of course, plus 267-395-6962 is our WhatsApp line. We're talking combating transnational crime. And in the building, I am speaking to Mark Boswell, the IALEA or IALEA program director, and of course Rema Singh Matibe, who is the IALEA or IALEA managing director. Rema Matibe, let me bring you back in the conversation. Where is IALEA located, Botswana? I believe it's located at the Botswana Police. Why is that the reason? Is it a strategic decision by, you know, yourself and of course the organization you represent?
Oh, okay, sir. Yes, yeah, you are right. It's at the Botswana Police College. And, you know, after the construction of Botswana Police College, this idea of having IALEA, having an institution that can handle transnational organized crime, came into the fold. And I think what the government did, one would say it was a strategic decision. I think what the government did was to look for a location that is more cost effective. If you look at Police College, it was already existing.
Yes, sir.
And then to take away the hassles of maybe, like, that's why I'm saying it's cost effective. The hassles of maybe taking away a lot of things, like you'd find we already have got, you know, water retillation. We've got already have got electrical things and stuff, sewage and stuff like that. So it was a matter of bringing IALEA to come and, you know, it was a matter of just bringing it and to connect it to the already existing, like I said, water retillation, for instance.
Yes, yes.
But other than that, we wanted to be at a place where it was quiet in terms of operations. You know, some of our courses, like one course in particular, which is the post-blast investigations, they will have to do with detonators, you know, blowing cars, to teach officers about the trend that we see in Botswana where they blow machines.
Yes.
And it's too noisy and it's too dangerous.
Yes.
If you do it next to public places. So we have to be in a location where we can blow, you know, detonators, blow cars, blow ATMs, you know, safely. So that we do not interfere with the public at large. So
absolutely.
I think that is one of the reasons why we are where we are. But we are where we are because the police college was there, like I said initially. So that we are in a place where we We can, like, now we share facilities with police college. We share the cafeteria. We share the gymming. So we have to be a place where we can share some of our facilities with police college.
Absolutely.
That is one of the reasons why we are there.
Well, we do know, and I've heard this, that Botswana police was ranked Africa's best, around Africa, being ranked out of 47 other countries. Let me ask you this. How has this partnership and cooperation with the U.S. government assisted and benefited Botswana in realizing its goals in law enforcement? Because, we've had a very peculiar pattern of crimes in the past, let's say 24 months. We've been introduced to a lot of these, as you said, bombings, as you said, heists. We're seeing a lot more crime that involves illegal firearms, and that's not something that we are necessarily used to. Just highlight on this partnership cooperation and how it's assisted the nation at large.
Yes, sir. The partnership is very important, and I can tell you that we have derived a lot of benefits from this partnership going forward. We have, for instance, there are 2 or 3 areas that I can touch on. Mm-hmm. The partnership has actually enhanced the skill sets of the law enforcement, not only the police but the law enforcement in the country, and not only the country but in the region.
Yes,
we are now a professional police service because of what we learned at Aliyah. Mm-hmm. If I may tell you, there are a number of areas where the law enforcement in the region were lacking, like Marcus initially pointed out. We're lacking in terms of cyber crimes and other computer-related areas. In terms of maybe human trafficking, this is where Ilya has to get in.
Yes.
As I'm talking to you right now, Swift, someone somewhere in the world is sitting down, designing a malicious website to try to hack into other websites.
Yes.
And these are the areas that Ilya focuses on. Someone is on Facebook. Someone is phishing your website, right?
Yes.
And Ilya has brought those skill sets to the police to be able to manage going forward, to be able to manage in the in the evolving world of digitalization and computerization.
Absolutely.
So this is one area which Ilya has bought, and this is what partnership has actually given us as the Botswana Police Service and as the region.
Absolutely.
So it's one area that I can point out that Ilya is doing. But other than that, there is an issue of partnership that comes into play. Because what Ilya is doing is that for us to realize that we need to forge essential partnerships when we manage crime. We need to form effective partnership and coalition strategies.
I like that.
You cannot manage it alone. You don't do it alone. Crime does not respect, like they normally say, crime does not respect borders.
Yes.
So if you look at crime, for instance, the drug will be starting from Brazil, coming to Botswana, and it goes through a number of countries. So for you to effectively manage it, you need to engage partners like in Brazil and in other countries. And these days, like Marcus pointed out, these guys are professionals that manage crime, and they are all around the world. So we need to engage everybody. We need networks to be able to to respond to that. There is a Chinese guy, my friend, who normally say one arrow is easily broken, but not 10 in a bundle. The idea is that it sympathizes the verb, the idiom, synthesize the virtues of cooperation. That if you are together and if you work like a team, you'll make it. And that's what Ilya is all about.
Yeah. Well, welcome to the show, Mark. I'm going to bring you back in, but, just to echo what Remanti was saying, I like the fact and I like what the international law enforcement academies are doing, both within a regional and now, Remanti clearly outlined the importance of collaboration regionally. I think that's where we need to understand a lot of. Let me ask you this question, Mark. Besides Ilya in Gaborone, does the U.S. have academies operating around and within the continent of Africa?
So we actually have a regional training center in Accra, Ghana. And so we were there in April celebrating our alumni.
Okay, nice.
So it's a very good facility. And then we have other ILEAs around the world. We have one in Budapest, Hungary. We have another in Bangkok, Thailand. And we have one in El Salvador in Central America. We also have an executive level Hialeah at Roswell, New Mexico in the U.S.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And, you know, I liked why the importance of, you know, combating transnational crime, because number one, child trafficking, whether we like it or not, that affects our communities, that affects us. You know, drugs, whether we like it or not. I've also heard that, you know, Botswana serves as a corridor because we are landlocked. We serve as a corridor for the movement of illegal substances. Right. And we're seeing the impacts in our social communities. That leads to higher crime. That leads to a lot more. We're seeing a lot more murders and all sorts of other crimes. So this component of our bilateral relationship between the U.S. government and the BW government is such an important bilateral relationship that Botswana need to understand its impact. Look, why did you choose Botswana for this academy? What was the motivation around, you know, ensuring that you have an ILEA in Botswana?
Sure. So over 20 years ago, there was studies done in Africa because we wanted an ILEA here. And so there were countries competing. And Botswana was chosen, as Director Matiba had mentioned, for the stability, for the sound government here. It was also chosen because you have a reliable infrastructure. You have a very, very nice airport. And then the Botswana Police College is there. Like Director Matiba had said, sometimes we'll bring in ATF and do post-blast where we blow up cars or ATM machines. And then the participants have to sift through the rubble and find the evidence.
Wow. I wonder if I'd be allowed to get a security clearance to come and see one of those things.
Welcome anytime.
Yeah, you know, thank you so much. Kings and Queens, you're on the Stars and Stripes show. Look, Mark, let's continue conversation. You know, profiling and profiling some of the people that you train. And, you know, to date, how much have you invested in these trainings in Botswana? You know, the Botswana would like to understand how much investment is going into our law enforcement? I mean, we've got the budget speech coming up on Monday. You know, obviously, in order for Botswana to also understand in terms of the numbers and the investment and why, you know, the Ministry of Security needs to understand, you know, the investment in terms of what you serve.
Yes, sir. So, ILEA Habarone has been in existence for over 20 years. And in that time, we've trained over 15,000 participants, dignitaries from various countries around Africa. And our target student or participant is mid-level managers, folks that have been in the field and have experience under their belt. We don't want the brand new recruits, and we don't want the top chiefs of police. Absolutely. So someone in the middle that can take that information back home and share that information with his or her colleagues. To date, we have spent roughly $50 million US, 460 million pula. And we, like I said, trained over 15,000 participants. At any given week, we have a class going on. And to end the year, last year, we trained 1,500 participants, total of 40 courses that we taught.
And these are internationally accredited courses. This is where, you know, participants that go through the doors of ILEA get, you know, official international best practice accreditation. Absolutely,
Swift. So what we'll do is, let's take narcotics investigations. So we'll bring in countries from around Africa and even Brazil and Thailand. We'll bring them in. And we'll talk about the drug trade. And we'll bring in experts from the DEA that will come and say, this is what's happening in the U.S., how would it benefit your country? And then the countries share information about what they see in the field, and they exchange that information and hopefully build those rapport that will last throughout their careers.
Remantiwe, let me ask you this, the psychology of law enforcement. I mean, the psychology is a very, very important component of what you do, to be able to read body language and things. Just touch on, how this cooperation and this partnership has improved law enforcement from that point of view. Because, often enough, we take that for granted, whether we like it or not, body language speaks a lot. My assumption, I'm speaking from a very ignorant point of view, but my assumption that body language speaks, the psychology, is that included in some of the work that you do?
Yes, sir, you are very right. Body language says a lot about someone. I mean, I look at you. If you are well trained, I can tell. I can tell your motives. I can tell what you are just about to commit in terms of crime, whether your action or inaction. But Ilya has got, it covers a breadth of courses.
Yes. And
some of the courses that are taught by FBI, like Mark rightly pointed out, would actually drill you to be able to understand the kind of people that you are dealing with in terms of crime, and they profile people. You are taught how to profile people, how to look at people and make a conclusion about someone's behavior, because behaviors, they control everything. Even in crime, they say you commit crime because you were willing, you had a willing mind.
Yes. And
then this is the kind of behavior that I'm talking about. So some of our courses would actually teach our law enforcement officers on how to tell, just from behaviors, how people commit crime. But like you said, this partnership has been very important. This partnership is big and is robust. I always tell the people that if there is any partnership, because of its robustness, because of the breadth and depth of this partnership, because it does not only involve Botswana, but it involves other countries. I always tell the people that if there's the best partnership that we ever had is this kind of partnership. Because having worked at Aliyah for almost 18 years now.
For almost 18 years?
Yeah, for almost.
Wow.
I mean, I came to Aliyah, one back I came to Aliyah, but I've witnessed firsthand the impact that this partnership has done in terms of professionalizing law enforcement officers, in terms of, building the necessary partnerships.
Yes, sir.
Forging essential relationships.
Yes, sir.
That help us to manage crime. Like, I was talking to Mark last time that what I was going through one of the airports in Ghana.
Yes, sir.
And I had a problem because I had a small bag. So these guys were like, they suspected me.
Yes.
How would I just get trouble without a bag?
Yes.
And I had the Ilya t-shirt on.
Yes.
So one guy came and he said, "Oh, Ilya." So they were able to help me because of that. So they saw Ilya.
Yes.
So this is the kind of impact that we are making. We are making friends. And if people see the badge, they can tell, this is Ilya. This is very important. So this is the kind of impact that we are making in the world.
And guess what? Swifty Swift has his own Ilya t-shirt. I think when I travel around the world, I'll definitely be wearing that. Kings and Queens, the Stars and Stripes radio show, proudly brought to you by the U.S. Embassy, combating transnational crime. Please feel free to engage. Law enforcement is something that we cannot take for granted. It contributes to a healthy democracy. It contributes to the overall safety. And what I love about this particular relationship is that they include issues that are close to my heart, especially child abduction. I think that is one thing that no Botswana should go through. Having your child abducted it's wrecking. The psychological element is crazy. But Kings and Queens, on the other side of this, Mark, if you don't mind, I'm going to prep you for a question. I'd also like to touch on matters of biosecurity. And because whether we like it or not, we've just come out of a health pandemic. We're seeing issues of biosecurity are important. It's important that we understand our safety in line with what I call an invincible enemy, and those are issues that we'll touch on. Also I've realized globally and internationally, law enforcement also touches on food security. A lot of people might take that for granted, but, being able to see or assess our level of food security is such an important component. And that's why the bilateral relationship between the U.S. government and the BW government is very important. Good morning. Kings and Queens, welcome to the Stars and Stripes radio show, talking about combating transnational crime. And of course, Mark, I wanted to ask you about, matters of biosecurity. We've just come out of a health pandemic, and I've read a lot, especially in the US, in terms of, your security organs touch on a number of different things. And that's what I find interesting. From international banking, food security, and biosecurity, we are where, even as far as applications such as TikTok, right, and what the potential impact it has on a nation and the security of a nation. Just touch on a little bit of your knowledge on those subjects, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Swift. So it is a ripple effect. It affects everything. So
yes.
The COVID affected everything that you can touch.
Absolutely.
And so we bring in experts from the Department of Homeland Security.
Nice.
And in the healthcare, and we also talk about tourism and business.
Wow.
And so when we bring in these delegations from other countries, they are able to share with other African countries what's happening in their home front. And they'll be able to take the information back home and hopefully help their countries succeed in what they need to do.
Absolutely. Rematiba, let me bring you back into the conversation. Elia, you guys are an empowerment and training facility. What are some of the stakeholders that you work with, Mo Botswana? Is it strictly the Botswana Police Service, or you cross on to other stakeholders within the public sector, just for our listeners' understanding?
Yes, thank you so much. We do not do things in silos in law enforcement.
Oh, I like
and
that.
And that's the idea behind ILEA. But what we do because we train law enforcement in Botswana. We train wildlife.
Okay.
We train bears. Botswana Unified Revenue Services.
Oh, birds.
BUR, yes.
Okay.
We take care of them in terms of training. We train DPP.
Wow.
We train DCEC.
Wow.
Wildlife. I hope I haven't left anyone out.
Yes.
So anyone who deals with law enforcement, we bring him on board so that we are on the same page going forward in terms of managing crime. We have got to appreciate that, working together, we need each other. We need to stand shoulder to shoulder.
Yes.
In managing crime not only in this country but across the region.
Absolutely.
So that is why we train everybody, and the government obviously support us. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank the support that we get from the government.
Yes, absolutely.
And the support that we get from other law enforcement agencies, because they support us. I've never had any cause to complain. At every time at Ilya, every Mondays, when I look around, I see a DCEC sitting down. I see DPP sitting down.
Yes.
I see bears sitting down, because we have called them for courses. So they are part of us, and whatever milestone we have achieved over the years at Ilya, we have achieved this through the support of other law enforcement agencies, which is quite good, is quite impressive. So, and like I said, interestingly, that is the objective of ILEA, partnership, working together.
I like that.
You don't do it alone, you do it with others.
I like that.
Yeah.
Well, it's Gabs FM Power to Engage You All, and whether you like it or not, we've got to thank the U.S. government as well as the U.S. Embassy, the BW government. Whether we like it or not, shared security is such an important component, and it speaks to the commodity of trust. That is what we need. We need to be able to trust our law enforcement and ensure that they're capable and credible, and this is what this bilateral relationship means. I got to share a story with the two of you. I come from many walks of life, okay? And I was a very, let me say, irresponsible young man growing up. And, I was getting rid of my adolescent ways. And in my younger days, I used to roll with a lot of con men. Right? And, one thing, the element of greed and the psychology of greed is very, very interesting to me. We used to have an issue, Mark, called flush. I don't know how to explain flush in law enforcement terms. I'll give it to Rematiba, but it's essentially fraud, if I'm not mistaken, essentially. And what these gentlemen used to do, they used to come in and they would give you've got to invest in what you're doing. They'd give you 1,000 pula real tender, and they would say, go and check at the bank if this is legal tender, right? And you'd go, let's say an old lady from Moleps would go to the bank and check, okay, if this is real tender? Yes, the bank would definitely confirm that it is legal tender. And then they would go back and say, look, bring us 50,000, we can print this money and make it even more. We can give you 150,000. And the psychology of greed would definitely kick in. And bogologolo mo strateng, they would call it change quarter, which means like exchange. And they would wrap these things with foil and all sorts of, and bring, the psychology around it. And they would say no. And once they've exchanged the package for a brick of paper, they'd say, put it in the fridge and make sure you don't open the fridge for no more than 4 hours. Otherwise, the chemical is going to destroy this and that. And then they would leave with your money. And you would be in a peculiar situation, because you can't go to the Botswana Police Service and say, I'm going to report a crime. And they ask you what happened, and that's why these bilateral relationships are so, so important. Botswana could take it for granted, but this is why it's important to understand that, what the BW government and the US government is doing together to ensure that we capacitate. And I must congratulate the BW government for the regional relationships, as Rematiba was saying. It's so important for these regional partnerships. Let me say this in closing. What are your parting statement? Oh, would you like to add on to that?
Yeah. You on the quarter and the flashing of the
change quarter.
Change quarter. Yeah. It's just good to hear that you have a crime history,
yes,
past history. But I just wanted to say that, as Mark was pointed out earlier, that when these guys come here, they share experiences and knowledge.
Yes.
So once you share something like that to a country that has never experienced it,
yes,
once it comes to that country, they already know that this has happened in Botswana, and this is how we can handle it from Botswana experience.
Yes.
So idea is about, you can see how important experiences are. Because of your experience, you can share it with someone who has never seen it.
Yes.
And once you share it, that person, that other law enforcement officer, would be in a position to handle it effectively because you have shared it with him.
Absolutely.
So that I just wanted to say that.
And Rematibe, in closing, would you like to add on to that, Mark? Is there anything you'd like to say?
I would just say what you had described is a crime.
Yes.
And just imagine that on an international scale, because criminals are doing that via the internet now. They're doing the phishing.
Yes.
And say, oh, will you put this in your bank? And then it gets bigger
yes,
fish, as you say.
Absolutely. In closing, Mark, what would you say to the nation of Botswana in line with Elia? What would you say in terms of, and I think one thing that we've got to say, wherever you go in the world, you've got to be more vigilant.
Yes.
Whether we like it or not, the world has changed. The criminals have changed. I was even reading in South Africa where they're using these computerized systems that allow them to steal cars without even any form of force needed, you know? So what would you say in terms of the vigilance of Botswana just as a whole? Because like what Rematiba was saying, crime doesn't work in silos.
That's
and
correct.
therefore, in order to combat and mitigate crime, you cannot operate in a silo.
Right.
Talk to us in terms of your parting statement.
Yes, sir. So I would like to shout out to our staff.
Nice.
IALEA staff. We have a staff of 26 very talented people. So IALEA, if you're listening,
Yes.
we love you.
Yeah.
The director and I, we just give them the tools to succeed, and
Yes.
they do a wonderful job.
Fantastic.
So back to your question, it is exactly that. People need to be vigilant. It's not like when I was young or you were young.
Yes.
Times have changed.
Absolutely.
And then they need to also report suspicious behavior.
Okay.
If you have someone, staking out your neighborhood, call the police and be vigilant.
Absolutely. Rematiba, let me give you this opportunity to share your parting statement. Botswana ba already it's a lot has happened. Crime is changing every day. Whether we like it or not, even hijackings are now happening in the city of Gaborone. The city has changed. What would be your parting statement as the managing director of Elia Botswana?
Yes, sir. Maybe first and foremost, I would like Mark said, I would like to thank our staff. These are the guys who work behind the scenes to make us look good as directors.
Yes.
They do a great work, and I would just want to congratulate them. And then the other thing, as you are saying, maybe it's appropriate for me to thank other law enforcement agencies in the country.
Absolutely.
These are the guys that support us, and they are always there for us. It's very important if you've got the support, the kind of immeasurable support that we get from bears, from wildlife, from immigration and others. That goes to say, ultimately we'll manage crime in this country because we are one. The oneness and purpose in approaching crime in this country would actually see us defeating crime. Like we have rightly pointed out, crime these days requires collective action.
Absolutely.
You cannot do it alone. And I would like to thank other law enforcement agencies. And maybe it's appropriate for me to thank the U.S. government.
Yes.
The U.S. government has actually come to Botswana out of the countries and set out Aliyah here, which is very good. And we work with the U.S. government. And we thank Mark. I always call him
Shout
my
out to Mark.
corporate strategic partner.
Yes.
Yeah, so I would like to thank the U.S. government as well, and Mark on behalf of the U.S. government.
Swift, I don't know if you know this, but we're
Yes.
twin brothers.
Yeah,
So,
I can tell the relationship between you two.
So whatever we do, we decide as a whole.
Yes.
So Director Matiba and I make all decisions together.
Wow, and I like that. And I like that because it shows the importance of collaboration. It highlights the importance of our bilateral relationship. Together we can do a lot more. And remember, crime is not the police issue. It is not a law enforcement issue. It is our issue as a community. Let's ensure that we play our role in line with mitigating and combating crime. Like you say, Mark, just to echo your words, when you see something suspicious, you'd rather report it, rather than be sorry. Let's make sure we take care. Let's make sure we're vigilant. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to continue the show shortly after this, but thank you so much for being a part of the show, gentlemen. I'll definitely be coming to see you guys, one of your training sessions. I'd love to be a part of that just to see, and we don't put that kind of training on social media, so don't worry.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
So
because it's top
you're welcome
secret.
anytime. So.
Yeah, classified information.
welcome, sir.
Thank you so much. King and Queens, we're going to continue conversation. Look out for it. I've got Ask the Charge coming your way. I've got Chasing the Dream in line with Education USA coming your way. And of course, we're going to just take a short break. Good morning.
Boom truck music.
11:52 is your time, and of course, if you just joined us, you are officially on the Stars and Stripes radio show, proudly brought to you by the U.S. Embassy in partnership with Gabs FM. And of course, we were talking combating transnational crime and highlighting the bilateral relationship between the U.S. government and the BW government in line with security, shared security. And of course, I must say I'm proud of the BW government, and I had a very, very informative show speaking to Aliyah Gaborone, the International Law Enforcement Academy. Gaborone is located about 45 kilometers south at the Botswana Police College. Aliyah grounds and facilities are adjacent to Botswana Police College Complex. Aliyah is a U.S.-funded program with in-kind contributions via the Government of Botswana Partnership. And of course, on July 24, 2000, in the view of their long-standing and close cooperation in law enforcement and their mutual interest in combating transnational crime, the United States and the BW government entered into an agreement for establishing an international law enforcement academy that would provide training for middle management, managers and eligible countries in sub-Saharan Africa. Now that is huge. Kings and Queens, let me continue the conversation, and we're going to cross over into Ask the Charge, and this is a question that you had for Her Excellency Amanda Jacobson. This is what you had to say. How do you fit being a charge and of course into your normal day-to-day lifestyle? This is what she had to say.
Ooh, that's a good question. Being a diplomat is both a privilege and a responsibility. While overseas, we diplomats reflect the United States at all moments, whether we're giving a speech at an event such as the recent Peace Corps swearing in, or buying mangoes at the grocery store. I'm proud of our embassy team for choosing this lifestyle, as it carries an enormous amount of responsibility to ensure we are representing our government and people well. We're diplomats every day, Monday through Sunday, 24/7, and are prepared to serve at any time.
And one thing that stood out for me was the word serve, and I love that about U.S. culture, and of course the importance of serving your community, serving your country. Of course, Kings and Queens, we're about to come to the tail end of the show, but let me tell you, Education USA has an advising center here in Gaborone, and of course, please feel free to engage Education USA. Education USA Botswana offers accurate, current, and comprehensive information on U.S. higher education. Our advising center offers both group and individual advising, resource materials, and free internet access. You can get one-on-one advising. Let me tell you something. I've always encouraged Botswana who's about to finish high school or even abala form 3, engage the U.S. Education USA office in Botswana via the U.S. Embassy in order to understand what is going on. You can also get appointments that speak to international students. You can get appointments as an education center, as an office block. You can get a number of facilities and of course services that are proudly brought to you by the U.S. Embassy in Botswana. Kings and Queens, I've got to love and leave you. I go by the name King Swifty Swift, otherwise known as the prolific Bantsola. And of course, this is the Stars and Stripes radio show, proudly brought to you by the U.S. Embassy in partnership with Gabs FM. Please kindly follow all the U.S. Embassy social media pages. There is a lot going on in the year that is 2023 in partnership with the U.S. government. Look out for it. I know in about March or June, I don't remember, but the Africa Leadership Summit in partnership with the U.S. government is coming to Botswana. That's a major event. Look out for it. So follow all the U.S. government social media pages. There's a number of grants available for you as long as you're eligible and you qualify. That is what collaboration is all about. Shared prosperity and a shared future. Kings and Queens, good afternoon.
The Stars and Stripes show was brought to you by the U.S. Embassy.